There is a theory in Western politics that everything that happens in America happens in the UK and the rest of Europe 5 to 10 years down the line. Despite our Blairite fantasies that the plucky British Prime Minister will stand up to the lecherous and crass US President, the reality is that we tend to follow America obsequiously. This was especially so under Tony Blair famously, and really has been ever since. But in many ways, America represents the power structure of the age, and the law that they lay down really is the model for everyone else to follow. Now, with this in mind, I do wonder what happened in America with Donald Trump could be repeated here in the UK. What I mean is you have people who've lost faith in the system completely, and then you have an outsider, a disruptor coming in, somebody who's completely fresh and shoots from the hip, who say the harsh truths and appeals to middle America. Of course, I'm speaking here of Trump in 2015. No one really expected him to win, and he shocked the whole system by succeeding. It seems that the powers that be underestimated Trump and really didn't expect him to get that far. 2020 saw, let's just say, a dodgy election with questions around it, but by the time Trump has returned in 2024, it's often seemed that this Trump is a new Trump. It's someone who's more integrated with the system. Now, there are theories circulating out there that the powers that be in America realised that Trump wasn't going away, that he had massive popularity with the public, and maybe that they'd overplayed their hand with the woke stuff. What this meant is, instead of fighting Trump, they decided to join forces with him. Presumably, conversations went something like, you can have your deportation of illegals, you can keep your right-wing rhetoric, however, you must abide by the power structure that governs the Western world. And judging by Trump's response to the Jeffrey Epstein cover-up, I think we know which side Trump went with. Now, if this theory is correct, and I personally think it probably is, it was something of a masterstroke from the powers that be, because in one fell swoop they brought in the silent majority of Americans that had become completely dispirited with their system. They also got the boys from the Deep South Bible Belt signing up for the military again, going out to fight for Uncle Sam. They created a powerful ally in Donald Trump on the geopolitical scene. And on top of that, they were always hiding the actual issue of the age, which is the demographic replacement of European origin peoples. In many ways, this is sales 101. If you're going to sell something to people, make them think that they're winning. And back here on the ancient shores of Albion, you do wonder if the same trick could be played with Nigel Farage. He is someone who's seen as being outside of the establishment. He has a lot of goodwill in the heartlands, and he seems to be someone that seems a bit more human than the mainstream bureaucratic liberal politicians. And you can throw into that mix a public that's sick of woke lectures, that's tired of mainstream managerial types, and it means that Reform are absolutely exploding in the polls from nowhere. They're now essentially leading. Yet all of this begs the question, as Farage gets closer to the centre of power and stares into the abyss, will the abyss also look into him and render him a part of the very system he's supposed to oppose? So far, the answer seems to be a resounding yes. Farage is already being outflanked by the Tories' Robert Jenrick, who, let's be honest, is probably going to lead the Tories into the next election. Farage himself has said he's to the left of Jenrick on immigration. That's virtue signalling to the liberal mainstream there. On top of that, he has secured for Reform several defections from the Tories. But the problem is that if you're securing defections from the very party you're supposed to oppose, what party are you becoming? And I noticed today, which I think is a sign of the times, Reform had a somewhat sympathetic write-up on the BBC, which is very unusual. And one does wonder if the system has thought they can integrate Farage rather than oppose him. After all, Farage would be even easier than Trump. He's already signalled he's pro-Islam, he's come out as against mass deportations, and he's a Thatcherite deep down, so he'll be very much on board with the neoliberal free market economics. And as with Trump and the American heartlands, to the average Brit, having Farage in will seem like a big win. He'll push back against wokeness and will reinstill the 1990s libertarianism. The only problem is it's not the 1990s anymore, and we have much bigger problems. The key issues I'm talking to here are immigration on the one side and identity on the other. Collectively, they form the key issue of our century, that is, the demographic replacement of Western people in Western nations. This is the epochal issue of our era. The magnitude of it cannot be overexpressed. Now, if our political leaders and politicians don't pay any mind to this issue, we know they're just part of the liberal system themselves, however right-wing they may well seem, and to rub salt in the wound when they do pay attention to this issue, they'll just gaslight you as racist and evil and whatever else is trendy with The Guardian this week. But as I often say on the channel, I don't think we should get too wrapped up in party politics or even election cycles, because by doing that we're still getting lost in the drama of liberal modernity. We're falling for the scheme. The reality is nobody's going to come and save the system because the system itself is rotten. It's clearly controlled by globalist liberal moneyed interests, and until we start thinking on that level, we'll never really see change. To my mind, this battle is a lot bigger than we give it credit for, and there's no point getting wound up in the drama, getting angry, getting mad, arguing with people online. Instead, it's better to take a step back and see things as they really are. This is a battle of our deep tradition of who and what we really are against a modernist globalism which seeks to rip up the very roots of our foundations. I was reading Ephesians recently and came across this famous passage. I thought it summed up our situation beautifully. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. That last dimension is really worth contemplating on, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. The implication being there's something within the sacred that's poisoning it. In the Western context, I think it's at the very heart of our tradition that something's been poisoned. And until we wake up to that, we're going to suffer continually. This is one reason why I started the sister channel, The Sacred Way. It's all about personal and spiritual transformation to try and create better men for a new age as we work through that together. Do check that out down below. Other than that, do let me know what you think down in the comments, and do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.